Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam, ala Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum, my name is Tahir Rafiq,
My name is Badruddin Muhammad.
and together we run The College Muslim, which is a podcast all about growing up Muslim in America as well as Western societies in and throughout high school and college. And our goal is really just to show the experiences that we've been through and the kind of things that we faced, as well as what a lot of you guys who might be listening face, and kind of just work through what are some of our coping strategies, as well as the kind of way we navigate the current situation in today's modern day world with Islam. And our goal is mainly just to show that you guys aren't completely alone, that we're all kind of in this together, and that these experiences are not one-off experiences, and that we all go through them. So with that, I'll let you introduce today's topic.
All right. So today's topic is it's a topic that's talked about a lot in Islamic spaces, and it is backbiting or ghiba. It's when you talk behind someone's back. I mean, let's just define backbiting, because why not? Or like define it in the sense that like just what as far as we know. So backbiting, it's like when you talk behind someone's back about in a way that they would not like to be talked about. There's a skewed definition of it. I feel that a lot of scholars and like a lot of people have told me, and that's that backbiting in Western society, we say it as if something that you say behind someone's back that you would not say to their face. And that second part, it's not an excuse when it comes to the Islamic version of backbiting, as far as I know, Allahu alam. But like saying anything behind someone's back without their explicit permission, and without like just saying anything that you, even if you would say it to their face, if they're not there and you say something about them in a way that in a way that's
Might
not
hurt
like
them.
identifying them, or like not like that for no reason kind of thing, then that would be considered backbiting. So it's become so common in our daily life, I feel like.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's a big topic that we often do casually, that we need to start of, and I myself, when I say we, I mean I myself need to start being more cognizant of.
Yeah. I mean, I think, so going back to like first defining backbiting, 'cause
Yeah.
that's, I think, something important that we should do in all of our podcasts that we try to do.
Yeah.
Is kind of define the topic at hand and what part of it we're addressing.
Especially because a lot of the English words, they don't like they translate to Arabic, but like the Arabic word and the English word aren't exactly like
yeah.
word for
So that's why it's really
translations.
important to understand the definition of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so what I kind of pulled away from that also, I
Mhm.
completely agree. Like if
Yeah.
you're gonna even say something that like say something to their face.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people will say, "Oh, I would say this to their face too,"
Yeah.
or they'll be
exactly.
like, and some of them do say it to their face.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna say anything that deals with the flaws of, because that's what backbiting is, right?
Yeah.
Talking about what you think is the flaw in that person, where they're thinking they're not doing that well,
Just,
they're not doing
just
that great.
anything that you that they themselves would not say about themselves.
Mhm.
I
Whether that concerns like their
yeah,
body or like
their
their
body,
religious
their
affair.
actions,
Yeah.
things like that, anything. And I feel like okay, personally, like I think a lot of it comes up to like when we're making jokes with friends,
Yeah.
and like sometimes like you'll make jokes about certain people when y'all are in a group,
Yeah.
but when y'all aren't in a group and you're like, it's just someone who's in your friend group, but they just happen to not be there that day. Like when you say a joke about them that's not in their presence,
Mm.
that could be backbiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that's existing in college and high school in prevalence
Definitely.
nowadays. Because almost like we have this excuse like, oh, it's just a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like that doesn't really fly. It's kind of, I mean, we'll talk about this later too, because I did want to bring it up
For sure.
later. But I'll
Yeah.
introduce the concept right now. Is we talked about this earlier as well, away from the podcast.
Mhm.
But on the day of judgment, every single part of your body is going to attest
Yes.
to what it did in your lifetime.
Yeah.
So essentially, your hands will, and your hands, your legs, your arms, your feet, every single part of your body
Yeah.
will attest to what your body did or what they committed.
Yeah.
So if you're if you're backbiting on someone, your tongue is going to attest to every single time you are backbiting someone.
Yeah.
And this will definitely come up later, so I'm not going to drop the hadith right now.
Yeah. For sure.
But what actually happens in through hadith, which we'll go into later, is the words that you committed are backbiting someone else. Supposedly, your good deeds will be taken away to compensate for the
yeah.
person who actually you were backbiting about.
Yeah.
So
That's just like, I mean, if you think about it like in like a monetary sense, you're just like
giving away money with nothing in
and
return.
this is more valuable than money.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
these good deeds are gonna. I think you actually made a post like yesterday or something, but like talking about how akhirah is forever.
Yeah.
And just understanding what forever means.
Yeah.
Like we feel like, okay, 10 years is like, oh, that's forever away, or like
Mhm.
the next, or if we make like a 30-year plan or like 30-year like life goal or something, oh, that's like that's forever.
Yeah.
If you comprehend what forever means, like even after you die, this is like forever.
Yeah.
Never, no end.
Everything that we know when it comes to science.
Yeah.
So say I'm not gonna say whether or not you believe in dinosaurs or not, but say you believe in dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Forever it means from the day that dinosaurs existed on this planet to the day that you were going to die,
Yeah.
and then multiplied
That's
by
a fraction
million.
of
That
like
is, it's multiplied by millions and millions and millions of
billions,
infinity.
trillions, bro.
So
Yeah.
like we can't really fathom that. So, all right. So before we dive into the whole like depth of like all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
let's just
Kind of unpacked a
finalize.
lot there before
Yeah,
we
we started,
gradually went in.
we dove in pretty fast on that one, but so kind of just defining backbiting, and so let's come up with this definition of backbiting is essentially you talking negative, whether it be on someone's like body, whether it be on their religious qualms, whether it be their worldly manners, when it comes to their, like their manners on a daily basis, like
Yeah.
how they eat, blah blah, how they pray, etc. So pretty much any negative talk critiquing someone else,
Yeah.
because in that, and the reason that's our definition is because the only judge truly is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so
Mhm.
he is the only one who is deemed to be judgment.
Yes.
Deemed judgment.
Definitely.
So so backbiting is doing any of those acts unto another person, as well as we'll talk about what happens when you hear that about yourself as well,
Yeah.
because it's not just like you
I mean,
committing that.
To add a little bit to that definition too, I just pulled this up right now, but there's a hadith in Sahih Muslim where Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala an narrated that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that backbiting is talking about your Muslim brother in a manner which he dislikes.
Mm-hmm.
And I like from this hadith, there's also like people will say, oh, like it says your Muslim brother. What about non-Muslims?
Yeah.
Backbiting non-Muslims. So I was looking at some other like scholarly opinions that have been put out there, and there's also the fact that just if you're not like the fact that Muslims shouldn't backbite about each other means that like not backbiting is a Muslim trait. Like avoiding backbiting is a Muslim trait. So by doing that with non-Muslims, you are essentially embodying something that's not Muslim.
Oh.
So
you're committing.
well,
Yeah.
it's
a way of
it may or may not be
methodology
a sin, Allahu alam, but
Yeah.
it's more just like you're
You're not embodying Islam in that way.
yeah,
that
you're not
supposed
embodying
to be.
Islam. There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our experiences, because we love
Definitely.
talking about experiences.
Yeah.
Okay. So backbiting is like so prevalent.
I feel like gossip is like
Gossip is backbiting.
gossip
Yeah.
is back, but I feel like gossip is like the word that's more used now than backbite. I feel like backbite is a more archaic term that like
Sure.
when you're talking about like casual conversation, you use it, but like gossip.
Oh my
or,
God, forget
like,
gossip. What about people who are like, oh, spill the tea.
tea. There,
Tea is like
gossip
the most,
is also archaic. I feel like that's like 1900 stuff.
yeah.
Like,
It's almost
tea.
like when we hear
Spill the tea.
backbiting,
Yeah.
people are like, yeah, that's negative, that's bad.
Yeah.
But when we talk about tea, they're like, oh, that's just tea.
Spill the
That's
tea, bro.
harmless, right? Like,
Yeah.
I guess like we kind of replaced that. Okay, so anytime you mention backbiting, gossiping, or tea in this episode, we are specifically talking about backbiting.
Yes.
Okay, so let's also establish that.
All right.
All right. So when, okay, I mean I'll go first because I already have a story.
All right,
But
go Elementary school.
Yeah.
You've been gossiping. I mean, I guess that's pretty common. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's
not a
common here. It's like it's like a practice. Like
I mean, let's just address that for a second. It's like how common is backbiting, gossip, tea?
too common, and it exists.
It's part of our culture.
And yeah, not just like American Western culture. It
Yeah.
exists.
Every
in
culture.
every
Dude, I
culture.
feel like they see people gossip more than.
I've heard. Oh my God! Don't get me started. But basically, like it exists in your local communities, in
Yeah.
your Muslim communities. Backbiting. It's an inherent this inherent ugliness of like human beings.
Of humanity
Yeah.
to talk about other human beings.
Yeah, it just exists, and that's
Yeah.
what is addressed in the Quran as well. Like this, there's I mean, I'm gonna pull it up maybe later when I find it, but basically backbiting. There's very few who are like secluded from it.
Yeah,
If that makes sense. Like the
Yeah.
majority of people will face a problem. So this is not something that we expect anyone.
definitely.
I'd be very surprised if people are listening to this and have not either been exposed to it, heard backbiting on them, or I'll be
Or
completely
just
fair.
heard other people backbiting other people.
Yeah, or even them committing backbiting on others. Like that
For
happens as
sure.
well. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna deny that. Like that's definitely in my past as well,
It's-
and it's in my present too.
It affects the way you think about other people too. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm sorry, I'm cutting into your story
Yeah,
right
yeah.
here, but like just I remember back when I was in high school, I mean up until high school I just wasn't someone who'd like talk about other people just because like I mean I was more like innocent and secluded and like sheltered from like the sort of culture of like youth in America. So
Mhm.
I was more like, oh, I'm Muslim, so I shouldn't talk about someone behind their back. But then when you hear other people talk about other people behind their back, or when you hear from other people that other people are talking about you behind,
It's a mess.
Inception, yeah.
Yeah.
But like that affects the way you start viewing other people. You start picking out things about other people. And
Yeah.
I saw myself doing that. I'd be like, oh, that person doesn't do this, or that person does this in class, or that person plays this sport this well, and like it'd be like a mental like racking of a list, and then that kind of gets into like this roasting culture that we have with like roasting each other.
Mm.
I feel like those two go hand in hand when it comes to spilling the tea and like gossiping and backbiting, and also just seeing negativity in others instead of positivity.
Mm.
And I saw that transition in my head when I was in high school, because up until middle school, I would never immediately look at someone and like pick out negative things about them, because I'd be like, that person seems like a chill person.
Mhm.
Like, okay, yeah, he's cool. I talk with him. Yeah, he does well in class. It's a nice guy. But then once I got to high school and I saw how everyone like roasting each other was like kind of like just a game.
It's a commonality.
It's a game,
Mm-hmm.
and it's become just like a pastime. And I feel like when you're not good at it, people see you as an easy target. So then you start in it as a retribution. You start looking at other people negatively and picking out things. And I saw myself picking out things of other people, and that's such a terrible mindset to have.
Yeah, that's a problem with like backbiting too. Is like when you attack like the reputation and character of like someone,
Yes.
like what you're like. I had this written
It
down
already
like
sucks
earlier.
in person, but when you do it behind someone's back, yeah.
Yeah, and there's also a difference between backbiting and like just slandering on someone. So
Yes.
slandering is simply like just like talking bad about someone, and in a lot of cases that can
Talking bad about someone that's not true.
That's not true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that can come back and backfire on you. But backbiting specifically is when you're talking like these truthful aspects about their
Yeah.
actual flaws, so that it won't backfire on you, but you're really ruining someone else's life.
Yeah.
Right. And so like let's go back to the experience thing. So like my
Definitely.
first experience with that was in I think elementary school, on a
Elementary
very
school.
small scale.
Mhm.
Like you know, I think this is gonna exist within a lot of elementary school students, and
For
you know
sure.
that's a good place to actually start addressing it with your
Yeah.
kid, because that's important to do that and teach them that this isn't the way. And if they're receiving backbiting, then teaching them how to forgive.
Yeah.
And if they're the one committing backbiting, then disciplining them to show that this is not the right thing to
Mm.
do. So for me, it was there was a kid in my school. He's never gonna see this, so let's just call him Child One.
Child
So,
one. All right.
Child One. Essentially. Yeah, he wasn't the nicest kid or anything. So
Alright.
at that age, you know, even I hadn't been exposed to too much of like this toxic area. Like I was very fortunate for that. But in class, I had this like solar system project that was really really nice,
Okay.
and it was like really really well made. And you know how my
Mr.
parents helped.
Astronaut Talha?
Yeah, back in my good old days before I learned I would never pass the classes. But basically, I had that really nice solar system project, and he didn't have as nice of a solar system project.
Mm.
And so he went behind, and things I did have my parents help on that.
Gotcha.
Right, and I made it clear when I didn't make
Yeah.
it clear, but my parents made it clear because they don't want me cheating off like
Yeah,
fake
of
work.
course.
But everyone still liked it, and they were like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." But he went behind and told others, he was like, "Oh, he's just using his parents' help, which is the truth. I was
Yeah.
using my parents'
Yeah.
help, and so like, but he was backbiting that he can't do anything alone, this that. So he was focusing on the negative aspect,
Yeah.
right? He didn't see that like, oh, my creativity could have been, it had to come to life, but I didn't know how to make it come to life, so then I need my parents' help.
Your parents supported you through that process.
Yeah, like I just needed that because
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do paper mache balloon, but I had an idea to make a paper mache balloon,
Yeah.
right? And so I was like, that needed help. So that was my first time truly being exposed to it, and that's the first time I truly realized like the ugliness, because even at that age I felt hurt,
Mm.
right? And I was like, ouch. Like I was mad, I was crying. It was like, for me it was the biggest moment of my life.
No, yeah,
Do you know
definitely.
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like
for real.
at this age it's like nothing. But
Yeah.
then I realized I'm not gonna lie. Like in high school, there's a lot of times that I would backbite other people,
Yeah.
especially because I'm gonna be completely honest. I felt threatened,
Mm.
right? Especially in a high school. I went to a high school which was very focused on prestige and like
Yeah.
popularity, and
I feel
played
like pretty much every high school.
yeah, pretty much every high school, and especially like
But especially your high school. Yeah.
especially my high school.
Yeah.
But so that was the focus,
Yeah.
and so I started backbiting others whenever I felt like threatened, and like that's me like telling my like I don't know how many people who I know are gonna watch this,
Yeah.
so this might be a little rough, but like that was a part of my past that I do not enjoy and do not like. I hated myself at that time,
Yeah.
and I hate myself now for doing all those things as well, because it led to a lot of people getting hurt,
Yeah.
right?
My love
And
for
that's
you is all.
yeah, and that's what backbiting does, is you tell the truth about someone else's flaws, and then that ends up actually hurting them.
And like sometimes the truth hurts more than a lie.
Yeah, because a
When-
lie can be, you can forgive a lie in a sense, be like, oh, he's just
You
out
can
of
also
his
forgive,
mind.
and it's also people have the benefit of the doubt when it comes
Mhm.
to like believing that person or not. But when it's the truth, and it's not just like there's the truth and there's the whole truth.
Mhm.
So when people start picking out certain truths and highlighting them and putting them on a spotlight for everyone to see, like that's when backbiting becomes backbiting versus just. So obviously, like there's backbiting, and then there's giving counsel or like making a judgment on someone in order to like protect like the community and stuff like that. So that's also something I was reading about when backbiting is permitted and when like backbiting isn't really backbiting. It's like when seeking counsel or like when preventing someone from engaging, say in like a business, like say you know a certain businessman or person that like is that you're going to do business with is corrupt, then it's your responsibility to tell them that that person's corrupt. That's not backbiting.
Yeah, but you
So-
tell them on an individual basis, and you don't go exposing that to other
Exactly.
individuals.
And you're telling the whole truth. You're telling the truth in within context of of business.
Yeah.
Versus picking out someone's truth on their picking out certain truths of a certain person's character and exposing that to the world. That's destroying their character for no reason.
Yeah.
For no reason other than for your own ego and your own arrogance.
Just like we have we know that we have to limit, like, even for this podcast, we're gonna be completely honest. Like, we know we can't be saying sins upon sins.
Yeah.
Just like you're not supposed to share your own sins, you're not allowed to expose other sins.
Yeah.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
Right. So to backbiting is essentially that, is
you're exposing
someone else's sins. And in college and high school, it's become way too much of a reoccurring thread. It's become way too much of a reoccurring trend.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, we feel the need to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And
I think it comes back to what you were saying too, is like feeling threatened. I definitely felt threatened a lot.
yeah, I feel
when
that
was
all
in
the
high
time.
school.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, I'll be honest. So I'll share another story. So I struggled a lot with my weight. Ever since I was a child. I think around 7th grade is when I started like working out because I wanted to play sports and stuff. So then I was still struggling with it. And I know a lot of people would, especially once you get to high school, body image becomes a big thing.
It matters a lot.
It matters a lot. People,
Yeah.
especially when you're playing sports, people look at you a certain way based on your body and then your skill set. So, I felt so threatened by that I would start that I like the roasting comes out,
Yeah.
I feel like roasting and backbiting aren't very different, even when it's in person. Like, even when you're saying it to someone's face versus like, even like you'll say it to someone's face one day, but then like you'll say it behind someone's back.
What is a roast by definition? A joke is a joke in general gist.
Yeah.
Okay. You can make a joke about like knock knock who's there.
Yeah.
Right. That's a joke.
Yeah.
But when you roast, you are roasting someone's particular something about them.
Yeah, a character or a physical characteristic,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. And so you can continue, but like specifically,
Yeah.
I just wanted to like highlight that roasting is backbiting.
Yeah.
The only difference is it has more of a colloquial. It's like more of a colloquial term,
Yeah.
like in today's day, like, oh, we're in a
Well,
roasting
obviously, roast only becomes backbiting when you do it
completely behind someone's back.
completely behind someone's back. But even in person, like roasting can hurt just as much as backbiting
Yeah.
to someone.
Well, by definition, again, backbiting sounds like an American tense of like behind someone's back.
Yeah.
But in Islam, backbiting is talking about anyone's kind of misdemeanor, like their, what is it called? Their flaws.
Yeah.
Even like you said, even to their face. So even if you're telling them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, okay, so even if if you say something to someone's face, that's not backbiting. But
among others.
among others.
Addressing, if you think you have, and that's another thing, is if you have friends and you know there's something they can improve themselves in, or maybe you think they can improve themselves with a certain thing,
Yeah.
you can approach them in a
Privately,
in a direct one-on-one manner, and you can format your critique in a nice and kind way,
Yeah.
right? And be like, hey, I noticed this, and I'm not sure if you want to talk about it. If you want to talk about it, this is what I noticed, and we can go more in depth. And if they
Yeah.
say, no, I'm not really comfortable with that, then you let it go,
Exactly.
right? But the modern sense of like exposing people on what they're bad at,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna not lie to you, like I've done it a few times in college too.
Yeah.
Like it's because you get
becomes
validation from it.
You get validation, and it becomes a defense mechanism. For me, okay, so I can explicitly say this. This is the exact thought that went through my mind when I was in high school, and when I became like a junior or senior, and I was becoming more comfortable with my body, and that's when I would be like, I need to start attacking people before they attack me. I need to start breaking people down before they get a chance to even get into my armor.
So rather than just forgive and forget, you would say before they even prevent. So
It was
rather,
it was preventative strike.
It was a preventative strike.
And that's such a
that's like saying that's like you have two nations, and a Muslim nation says, "Oh, they're gonna attack us. Let's go attack and kill them all first before they attack us." But how many cases were even in war when we're instructed when it comes to Islam?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be defensive.
Exactly.
So it's like once provoked, then you can do things.
Exactly.
Right. And in this case, once provoked, we'll talk about this later on, like solution wise.
Yeah.
I think one of the great solutions is forgive and forget. Yeah. But so you're basically saying that you went into a preventative measure of, hey, let me establish myself as a guy who can not be attacked because I'm gonna attack you.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do the same.
Yeah, no,
I did the exact same thing.
Thinking back on it now, I feel so like, I guess the dirty is the way to like kind of describe it. I feel so disgusted by myself.
It's an ugly trait.
It's an ugly trait. It's an ugly trait to sort of, I mean, obviously you can put an armor around yourself to like prevent people from attacking you and like just brush everything off, like you said, forgive and forget. But to even put that armor around you and then start attacking people from behind that armor, you never know what a person's intentions are. But to just break someone down before they can break you down, you're not giving humanity a second thought. Like that once again comes back to seeing the negatives of humanity, seeing every single negative aspect. That's what I was doing. I was seeing what can I attack this person on? What negative aspects do I see in this person? I'm gonna just like, honestly, it was kind of like I was compiling a database in my head. Like just talking about this makes me feel disgusted, but I
Yeah.
was compiling a database in my head of like, what are the negative aspects of this person that the next time they attack me, or even if they don't attack me, the next time we're in a group and I feel like they're about to attack me, that I can like roast them on this, and then like everyone will, like I said, validate me.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Billah, man. It was dark times,
Yeah.
and it's something I'm still working on, because the roasting thing doesn't stop. Like it never stops, even when you're with Muslims, with non-Muslims, doesn't matter.
And especially, here's the thing: anyone considering, hey, this is something I want to step away from.
Yeah.
Guess what? You might step away from it, but
Other people won't. Other people will still keep roasting, and they're like, bro, don't take it so seriously.
Yeah.
Especially with guys, I think.
But,
Like,
okay,
I mean, I can't speak about girls, but like I know with guys,
with
it's a big thing.
Yeah, because it's like who is the biggest alpha in the pack,
Exactly.
right? Like that is always like the conversation.
Yeah.
And so like you have two options: either like somehow, I will say this, we'll get into this, but one, you kind of either remove yourself. So that's something I've been practicing, is removing myself from certain surroundings and like trying to distance myself, becoming strong enough so that when I enter it again, I don't need to succumb to what it's changing.
Yeah.
But something I've noticed, I've seen some unique individuals while in college,
Yeah.
and I won't say his name, but my roommate is one of them, right?
Mm.
And so he's one of those guys who listens to all this critique, or even if he hears backbiting, or even if he hears like these roaster qualms or whatever,
Yeah.
in his public settings, he just won't let it affect him. It's like he's not just like a cold shoulder, like I'm not listening to you, but it's more like, okay,
All right.
now what?
Yeah.
I forgave you in my heart. I'm not gonna combat this. I'm just gonna sit here, and people like it gives you more respect.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, and this is something I'll bring up now because I think it's important. But essentially, when people roast and continue to backbite, and they go back and forth because they feel like there's like this never-ending loop of I need to come out on top.
Yeah.
But what you don't realize is the strongest response you can give is to listen and to accept, and then flush it out.
Yeah.
But not like make yourself a punching bag.
Yeah. I'll say something about that. Is because I've gotten this advice multiple times throughout my life. Especially when it comes to like roasting battles with like guys. There's like, dude, just like if you really don't want to be that kind of person, just be quiet. Just like don't like forgive and like forget. And in an ideal world, it makes sense. But I feel like once again, it has to do with psychology. And when you've been conditioned to this environment where you've felt the need. I think you also gave me this advice like back, I think last semester when I was going through it. Sometimes like when people would roast me and I'd want to like attack back. Yeah. You'd be like, just if you stay quiet, you'll get more respect. And in my head knows that, my heart doesn't though. And one thing I kind of want to talk about with my experience is I think I've been in an environment for so long where I felt the need to protect myself from everything that I'm too scared to take a bullet.
So what's been helping like break those barriers down?
It's time, and I think that's something that like for everyone out there who has been hearing this advice of just forgive and forget, just be quiet and you'll gain more respect. I know there's a lot of people like me who go through this because I've talked to a lot of my friends who've gone through this, and we all are still going through it because it takes time, because you've had these wounds from other people attacking you, and you've had these wounds from other people roasting you, and like just feeling as like honestly back in high school I used to feel like the friend group punching bag. Yeah. And like I never felt as part of the friend group. I just felt like there's a bunch of friends and I'm just the punching bag in the middle, that I'm just there for comedic relief. And we see that in TV shows too, like they're always they're always like the guy who's the comedic relief, or the girl who's the person who's the comedic relief. And that person, like when you feel like that person, it takes time. You have to like, but one of the ways that I've sort of tried, and I don't know if it's working yet. I've started doing it this semester, but it's just like you said, stepping away for a little bit. I feel like when you step away and when you're alone with your thoughts and when you're alone with yourself, and then when you go back into that group, when you've been away for a certain amount of time, people start to.
You also realize
I honestly don't know. I'm working on it.
I mean, one of the things that I realized when I did that was I realized like I knew my own self-worth before going in, and I knew when I would step out, you rediscover your self-worth. Yeah. Right. And so that helps with like this whole like backbiting conversation, because backbiting is going to exist no matter what you do. Yeah. Right. And I think, okay, on one end,
I also think stepping away gives you a chance to like sort of let those wounds heal. Yeah. And then when you go back in, you come in with a stronger armor.
And you realize backbiting does not need to be part. See, when you're by yourself, backbiting is completely non-existent. Again, it's only something that exists when multiple individuals are within.
You need at least two people to backbite.
You need at least two people to backbite. Yeah. Right. So there needs to be fuel, and there needs to be someone like you know,
ready to like start light the
lighting
match.
it up,
Yeah.
right? And so when you're by yourself, the fuel might be there because you have certain sins,
Yeah.
etc. You might have certain like
Certain thoughts,
bad
certain
qualities,
grudges, things like
etc.
that.
Right? But there's no one to light a match.
Yeah.
And
I,
so and,
I think the analogy is the other way around. Like you have all the sparks ready to erupt out of you, but you don't have anyone to like put that spark
yeah.
on.
And so when you spend time with yourself, you end up learning and self-validating yourself, so the sparks kind of disappear, and in a way, like putting a cover over all that, so that if when you actually enter back into the world of this like backbiting and such, they're less likely to engulf you in flames.
Yeah.
Right. So okay. So but I also want to address how do we stop.
One thing I will say before we move on though
Yeah.
is like for everyone out there who is struggling with what we talked about, like
with facing backbiting.
with facing backbiting and wanting to backbite back.
Yeah.
It takes time. Take it easy on yourself, especially because I know it's easy to get in your head and be like, I can just quit cold turkey. Like I can
Yeah.
just stop backbiting. I can just stop roasting people and I can just take it. But if you start trying to take it all at once, like just like you said, like if you're in a group and people are roasting you, just like stay quiet and like be like, haha, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you might be able to do that for a couple of times, but it'll build up. So give yourself time and understand that it's okay to take some time to just be alone. And even if you are in that group, to just understand that it's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the biggest realization I had to bring to myself, is because I've been that punching bag in high school, and coming to college, I didn't want to be that punching bag. So I tried to put myself in situations, but when it started happening again, my first instinct was to just like let loose and like do that. But it takes time. Give yourself time to heal. That's the one thing I can say.
Fair.
Yeah.
All right. So now on the end of like, what about stopping backbiting?
Yeah.
So we talked.
All right.
Like I think that kind of took a direction where we talked about like what happens when you're facing backbiting, what
Yeah.
happens when you're surrounded by backbiting, and what happens if you are the backbiter. So like first of all, how do you realize you're backbiting others?
Yeah.
And I mean I could talk about this because
Go
I
ahead.
feel like I was more on this end versus
sure.
like your end. Like I think I was more the guy who was backbiting others,
Mhm.
and that's something I definitely like was not proud of and definitely do not enjoy at all,
Yeah.
like anymore. Like it hurts me when I go home and sleep at night if I did say something about someone else,
Yeah.
and I'm like, why did you say that?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, what was the reason for saying that? You would never have said that if you were just in your room sitting by yourself. Like you don't actually think that about the person.
Yeah.
Was it because you felt threatened again? Was it because you were like, oh, I need to like show my power, or
You just like feel the opportunity. It's like I might as well take it.
yeah, or make people laugh? And I'm like, what kind of person are you that you're gonna want to make a joke about other people laughing?
Yeah.
So yeah, so what if you are the backbiter, right? And so do you have anything on that, or do you want me to start on that?
I don't have any.
Okay,
You go ahead, bro.
I'll start. For all the people out there who are listening, who know that they, first of all, how do you recognize that you are committing backbiting? Okay.
Yeah.
The two direct ways that I was able to tell that I think anyone can tell if they commit backbiting or any kind of like misdemeanor in that sense is one, if you go to sleep at night or something, or if you feel a little sick, like I'm talking like physically, like you feel heavy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like emotionally,
mentally. If you're emotionally and mentally feeling heavy because of conversations you have about others, evaluate what those conversations were. And I think if this like again, this is very specific, but if you specifically have conversation about others on your daily basis, or you have conversation about them now and then, on those days if you feel particularly heavy or like solemn, like something's wrong,
Yeah.
genuinely evaluate what was that conversation about. And I promise you that most of the time, like what I found was I was talking about people in a negative light, and when I began to talk to people in a positive light, my felt lighter, right? Like physically.
Yeah.
But the better indicator is if you have constantly are fighting this battle, like if you're walking out of your room every single day and you feel defensive, right? Or if you're like, oh, I might face this kind of stuff, like kind of we were talking about like the roasting sessions. If you're like going into things armed and prepared, like that is a really, 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 really big indicator that you're backbiting. Or like when it comes to like between you and your friends, if you're always on guard to like drop in like the little roast or this or that, and quick to arms essentially, that is a very good indicator that you're either backbiting or committing some sort of sin, because you shouldn't be on a defensive role. And once you let all that go, like we'll go over how to let that go and all that stuff, but once you let all that go, you begin to feel lighter, you begin to feel happier, you start waking up with the excitement to wake up and go outside and be with other people, because other people, then it's all about gratitude and happiness. It's not about who am I going to be defensive from, who am I going to roast today, etc., etc. Who do I have to be careful because I backbited about them 2 days ago and they might know now, and if they know now they might come at me and I got to fight with them. So like something I don't worry about anymore is like somebody, I don't have to like worry about like somebody coming up and being like, oh, you said this about me, this about me, and that about me, right? And sure, I slip up now and then. I still slip up 100% of the time. Like it happens.
But it's important to understand that it's it's not okay to slip up, but like, okay, so
Coming back to like the
you will slip up,
yeah.
but understanding that like it's not what you did was wrong, and then asking Allah for
It's the
forgiveness.
same
for
thing
that.
as like going
Yeah.
cold turkey. Like going cold
Yeah.
turkey
Never
never
works.
works. Like I know very few people who can go
Yeah.
cold turkey on certain things, and cold turkey by definition would mean that you never go back into it ever again in your lifetime.
Yeah.
But people go cold turkey and don't eat sugar for like 8 months, but then they go back into it, right? So
Yeah.
that's not cold turkey
Personal
necessarily.
experience for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're trying to develop. Anyone listening to this, we and you are trying to develop habits that exist for the rest of our life,
Yeah.
right? So you will slip up as you're trying to move from something. As no matter what you're doing,
Yeah.
when you're moving from something you're accustomed to something else, you're gonna slip up.
Yeah.
It's impossible not to.
Yeah.
But the rate at which it will happen will decrease
Yeah.
the more you do it. Okay.
If you put in the sincere effort, and once again it comes back to intention.
Mhm.
If you go in with the right intention and you put in the sincere effort every day, Allah, and if you have that trust, like having tawakkul on Allah is like very important when it comes to this, because if you don't believe that, not just that you can do it, but that Allah can get you through it. If you don't believe that starting out, it's never gonna work.
Yeah.
You have to believe that. Like more than the fact that you yourself, you think you can do it, but if you believe that I will do this with the help of Allah, and Allah has the power to help me through this, that's gonna be the baseline of your starting point.
And strength comes through that.
Strength definitely comes through that.
That's where that internal motivation and strength comes
Yeah.
from. So
And something that my mom always tells me is like, especially when it comes to these big life changing things, sometimes we feel as though like, oh, it's never gonna happen. Like, how the hell can I do this? And that's when I have to remind myself, and what my mom always wants me to remind myself is that, do you really believe that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, who created this entire world and balances everything in this world and in the akhirah and in Jannah and like all the seven skies and everything, can't help you get through a simple backbiting thing?
yeah.
Like if you that's why it's also important to like I forgot where I heard this, but it's also important to reflect on the creation and the ni'mah and the risk that Allah has given you,
Mm-hmm.
because if you understand how hard that is to control, all these things will seem so easy to overcome in life.
Especially with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. If you see how the human body works, or like
Mm-hmm.
how the world works, and like how the world has been created so perfectly, if you realize how hard that would be for you to do, and how hard that would be for Allah to do, then you would realize that if you realize how hard that would be for you to do, then you realize that when it comes to simple things like your own actions, that Allah that is nothing for Allah. Like, to help you through an action, that is nothing. You just have to trust in Allah, and you have to ask Allah for that.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
All right. So like once you've identified, like I completely agree. Honestly, like that.
Tawakkul on
Nothing-
Allah
yeah.
is the foundation of everything. That's where you'll if you have that when you start any endeavor, the strength that you will have through that endeavor is unimaginable.
Yeah, and that's a big part of what we're about to dive into now is like how do you pull yourself away from
Yeah.
backbiting? How do you train yourself, and how some of the ways that we did that personally, or I did that personally, and maybe a little bit about how you did it personally and how
Yeah.
we employ certain strategies. It all does come back down to having this faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Yeah.
and going back at night and knowing if you messed up, you turn to Him, and knowing if you need more strength, you turn to Him.
Yeah.
So that is a baseline, and then we start encouraging some other techniques and ideologies. So now I'm gonna start off with this quote that I found within the Quran itself, and it's in Surah Al-Hujurat, ayah number 12. And so anyone who wants to like follow along or look at it, they can look at it. So I'm just gonna read out in English. O you who believe, avoid much suspicion. Indeed, some suspicions are sins, and spy not, neither backbite one another. So that line, keep that in mind. And spy not, neither backbite one another. That is again a translation, but the word for backbite that's been translated is yaghtab, which is pretty close to
Ghiba.
yeah. So like there's, if you want to look at the exact definitions of that, feel free to, but this is what I interpret from this end. But here's what it continues to say. Would one of you like to eat the flesh of his dead brother? You would hate it, so in a way hate backbiting, and fear Allah. Verily, Allah is the only one who accepts repentance, the most merciful. So in this verse, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like He strongly forbids backbiting and spying.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
which are sins. And He compares the backbiter to one who would eat the flesh of his own dead brother.
Yeah.
Now that could be your own blood brother or your own Muslim brother, or in a way like yours.
Cannibalism,
It could be anything. So if you would hate eating the flesh of another human being, especially a brother who we know like should be like, even in a Muslim brother we should have special feelings for.
Yeah.
Do you not think you should hate backbiting to the same accord?
Yeah.
Now this isn't meant to scare you. Like it's a very scary thing, but it's not meant to scare you. What it's supposed to show is a way to avoid backbiting. So one thing I've been like implementing for myself is if I do catch myself backbiting, not even before, say I just accidentally backbited about someone, by repeatedly telling myself this on a daily basis, or repeatedly telling myself these kind of like a chronic or hadiths on a daily basis, right after I commit it, I think, oh my God, you just ate your blood.
Also, another thing I'll kind of contextualize that with is some people will, like, I've heard this so many times, but whenever I try to like tell some, like, not even me telling, but like some people will just talk about their sins and be like, oh, at least I'm not killing anyone.
Yeah.
So and if someone were to say I'm backbiting but I'm not killing anyone, Allah has specifically said in the Quran that backbiting is like not only killing someone but then eating that person.
Yeah.
So you can't even justify backbiting by saying at least I'm not killing anyone, because a lot of people will do that. A lot of people will say I'm listening to music but at least I'm not killing anyone. I'm doing this, at least I'm not killing anyone. At least I'm creating this XYZ sin, but at least I'm not killing anyone.
Yeah, and look, again, this is something that I feel like, because I want to come back to this, like the point of this podcast like was always,
we'll definitely have another episode where we talk about this whole thing.
But the whole point of the essence of this is not to like just show like, okay, these are the techniques to use. Like, believe it or not, like this is a technique to use, not to be afraid of Islam and realize you're gonna like, oh my God, I'm gonna go to hell or this or that. Like, understand also in the day of judgment, your good deeds are weighed against your bad deeds. And do not think if you have these certain bad deeds that you're nitpicky about, that you're supplementing your life with so many good deeds. If it's a good deed, to, you know, if you're having a picnic and you pick up your picnic away because there's a colony of ants that are existing, so you might step on them. If it's a good deed, and you know, that's within like hadith and so on. I'm not even gonna reference where, because just the point is, there's such small things you can be awarded good deeds for, even the way you put on your shoes. Right. So that's going to be a balance. So anyone who's listening to this, do not like freak out at any of these things. They're not meant to scare you. Specifically with backbiting, this quote in essence is supposed to inspire you. It's supposed to show you that, hey, if you are committing backbiting, this is something you can compare it against that you understand. Because it's very hard to understand what kind of sin something is unless we're giving something to be compared to. Of course. So that's the main point of this ayah, and this is like one of the techniques that I use, and genuinely it works for me, because when I think of it, I don't feel frightened or scared, because again, in the quote itself, it says, Allah is the one who accepts repentance, the most merciful. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala follow up the exact warning with I am accepting the repentance?
One of the things you see throughout the Quran a lot is whenever Allah mentions a certain punishment or a certain reprimand to a certain sin or something, he always follows it up with traits about himself that link back to seeking forgiveness. That link back to seeking forgiveness and repentance from these actions. Because I think that's one of the beautiful things about the Quran is the balance, and we're taught that Islam is a balance. It's a middle ground, and the way the Quran, I think there's a beautiful way that does this is it shows you what is wrong, but then tells you, but always reminds you that just because you do that wrong doesn't mean your life is over. I mean, you can never come back to Allah. It's
crazy, because like this is a scary, like, this is a scary repercussion. Like, hey, you're eating your brother's. Imagine if you have a brother. I have a brother. Imagine killing them and then eating their meat.
SubhanAllah.
Actually scary. But then it's followed directly up with, oh my God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who accepts repentance and most merciful. And like you said, he always follows it up with a trait and quality of himself that is about forgiveness and kindness. But we never focus on that. And so that's when it comes back to like how you can stop backbiting in public and with other people, is understanding you can be forgiven. You're not stuck.
Especially, I think one thing that we all need to sort of start doing is whenever we talk about things such as backbiting, like this is a common example that I've heard a lot of times where, oh, don't backbite because it's like eating your own brother. But then no one ever continues that ayah to the point to where Allah talks about forgiveness and repentance. What I feel like Allah is doing here is he's showing you this sort of roadblock, but he's also showing you the gateway behind it. So if you end up going through this trial and tribulation, that there is a gateway to get back to it if you are sincere in your efforts. If you decide that to never do this again, that this was something wrong that you did and you feel disgusted by it, then there is a way to get back to Allah, and there's always a way to get back to Allah.
And that's the key that you just said, right? Like, if you decide with a sincere effort to never do it again, so even if you do slip up, your sincere effort is to never do it. So you can, by telling yourself, I'm never going to do this, I'm never going to do it, it's not the Western ideology like of saying, oh, I'm never going to do something, and then when you slip up, I'm like, damn, I didn't make it.
Justice system. Like, the justice system will be like, okay, you're out on bail or you're out on parole, but the moment you do it again, you're done. Allah is not like that. Allah has so much mercy. He has more mercy than your mother will ever have mercy on you.
And your mother has a lot of mercy on you.
Your mother has a lot of mercy on you.
Most mothers have a lot of mercy on you.
So, like, to understand, like, there's no way we can ever comprehend the amount of mercy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for us. But realizing that just because, like, unlike a law system that will put you in jail or put you on death penalty as soon as you slip up, Allah will never forsake you as long as you are the only one standing in the way of Allah's forgiveness. If you have your sincere efforts, and by you I mean you, me, every single Muslim and Muslimah out there,
Yeah.
we need to start forgiving ourselves and also opening ourselves up to the forgiveness of Allah whenever we slip up.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly. I say that as someone who also struggles with that. Every time I slip up, I always feel like, am I done? Like, is this it?
Game over.
Game over?
Yeah.
It's not. It's never.
No,
Game's
it's the
never
same way
over.
that it's the same way like with good deeds. Like it's never enough good deeds.
There's never enough good deeds.
You just keep going. You keep
Yeah.
adding to it. Yeah. So like okay. So that kind of was that's one of the techniques that I use. Like okay. So that's two techniques in
Yeah.
itself. Like to stop backbiting is one, realize the harm of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you are hurting someone else as well.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of ruining someone else's life. You're kind of providing this unnecessary pressure and hurt in their life.
This facade, this like chaos on
Yeah.
earth.
Yeah. And it sucks, especially from someone like who actually did these things. Like it
Yeah.
sucks. Like you legitimately
You don't feel good about
you
it.
don't feel good about it. Like for yourself.
I mean, some people might feel good about it, but like if once you read through all the things that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has told us,
Yeah.
like you don't feel good about it afterwards.
Exactly. And then the other thing is another way to start growing from that is learn to forgive yourself and continue
Open yourself up to
Yeah.
Allah's forgiveness.
yeah, open yourself up to that forgiveness and don't stay stuck, because while you're open to forgiveness, you continue to improve. You continue to
Yes.
grow. The moment you
Absolutely.
lock yourself in, you're stuck.
Yeah.
Right? But there is no stuck in
There is
Islam.
no stuck.
So there's continual growth. Yeah, okay. So we've identified like what that's one. That's my solution towards that. I'm not sure if you have any other like kind of like takes on the actual committing of backbiting.
Actual committing of backbiting.
So what if you were the one to commit backbiting?
I think also a lot of it comes down to self-realization of what backbiting is. Sometimes you backbite without even knowing it's backbiting.
Oh yeah.
I remember just the other day I was talking to my friend and like, okay, so there were three of us. One of the dudes just stepped out for a second, so we're like joking, and then like I made a joke about the dude that just stepped out. But he's like he was literally right outside the door, and he could have come back, and I would have said it to his face. And I was like, and then my other friend, subhanAllah, he was like, dude, that's backbiting. And I was like, you're right.
I just committed backbiting.
I just committed backbiting. And then he told me, you can't enter Jannah without his forgiveness.
Oh, and that's where the other hadith comes from too, where it's
Yeah.
like you will compensate your good deeds
Yeah.
for the backbiting that you committed on someone else.
Yeah.
And that's why you won't enter Jannah without his forgiveness. Because
Yeah.
if he forgives you, then you might be able to keep it.
And there's also other narrations that I've heard where like you cannot enter Jannah without that person's like, unless that person says, yeah, let him go ahead. If that person decides on the day of judgment that no, I felt so wronged by that, or I felt so troubled by that
Yeah.
I don't want him to enter Jannah. You want to enter Jannah. And I was actually reading more about this from repentance from backbiting and like informing the victim and stuff like that. And for what these scholars have said here is that like it depends on the nature of the interest of the people that are involved. So that's what they wrote. Depend on the nature of the interest of the people involved. So the person wouldn't feel like very, very angered, or like it wouldn't like set them off or something, then it's fine. Go ahead and tell them. But if you feel like it would cause more unnecessary damage or just unnecessary pressure and stress on them, then it is enough to just repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. That's pretty much what I got off of it. But like obviously
yeah.
if you were able to go to that person and ask them forgiveness and be like, hey dude, I accidentally backbited about you, I'm sorry, like we're chill, and then inshallah they say yeah. I mean, I like obviously we make assumptions about people sometimes where we feel, oh, they're my friend, we've done it, like I've made jokes about him in person, like he'll probably be cool with it. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know on the day of judgment what that person's heart is going to be. You never know what's going on in someone's heart. So it's harrowing and it's scary to think about, but it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So read the room.
Yeah.
Read the room.
Read the room.
Assess what's at stake, and
Yeah.
then make your decision based off what you know is at stake.
Especially like making that one joke didn't bring me any joy or any
That's another thing.
any
It's like
benefit.
what does backbiting even bring you?
nothing.
Like in the hot second when you say it,
Some people might laugh. Some people are like, yo, dude, that was such a good
hilarious, or like you get that little boost of ego.
burn. Yeah.
But ego is a whole nother
Ego.
thing. Oh my god, like,
That's a whole
ego-
other video.
Ego in Islam is a whole nother thing.
Ego,
But,
arrogance.
it boosts those aspects, but are those really the aspects you want to boost in your life? But coming back to the whole forgiveness, even if you can forgive in the moment and you can just stay again, find trust and tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in that moment understand that like Allah is by your side.
Yeah.
Imagine you're in a boxing ring.
Yeah.
Okay. The other person has this human coach
Mm.
that's yelling and ferocious, and he's a scary looking dude.
Yeah.
That's the backbiting. That's the ego.
Yeah.
And in your corner you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who's gonna win?
No question.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the damn ego and the backbiting.
Yeah.
Like that was his creation into man to essentially, like, this is a human nature thing. Like, it was placed there.
Yeah.
Right? So would you not rather hold it in? Forgive.
Boost your connection to Allah.
Boost your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the moment when you face backbiting, or when you even commit backbiting and you run to the other coach.
Yeah.
Right? So just know what's at stake, and know whose corner you're running towards.
Yeah.
And whose corner you're running away from. And that's a good way, like, that I've also, like, actually I love that analogy. I'm not gonna lie, like, I just came up
The
with
boxing ring.
came up with that on the spot.
Wow.
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
I mean, I think it's a good way to, like, kind of qualify, like, what kind of, it's a battle. Like, you're constantly,
definitely.
it's a battle within your mind, and so you have to, like, choose a side that brings you actual true and pleasure. And, like, when you run into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's arms, like, and find comfort there,
Yeah.
it's much more it's much more beneficial for you and for those around you.
Yeah.
And why is that not what we all want for ourselves and for those we love that are around us?
Absolutely.
And just learning how to want that for people who we may not even love, but
Yeah.
we know that we need to, like, they deserve just as much as what we deserve.
Absolutely. So SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Yeah, I think that was actually, I think, just, like, conclude this, like, in general.
Mm-hmm.
Topics like this,
Yeah.
also in general, like, just to talk about college and high school topics like this, there's a lot of layers.
Definitely.
Like, everyone's case is also, like, super different. Like,
Yeah, I feel like, especially with, like, backbiting and, like, gossip and tea, like, there's so many variations of it, and so many specific cases, like, whether you say in front of a person, whether you say behind a person, whether that person has done wrong on you, whether what you're talking about can be considered counsel or complaining, or getting, like, relieving a burden upon your heart that someone has placed on you. There's so many, like, the post I was looking at about, like, situations in which ghiba, backbiting is permitted. Like, there's so many interesting cases here where backbiting can be permitted, but those specific cases and those specific nuances, those have to be, obviously, like, those are, first of all, Allahu Alam, like, you have to kind of realize that, like, these cases you might not be able to quantify all the time.
Yeah.
And the only person who probably will, or the only people who probably will be able to quantify are scholars who understand your situation and who can give you enough counsel on it. But at the end of the day, it's like you try to avoid to the best of your ability. You try to avoid backbiting to the best of your ability. And if there is a legitimate reason, whether it be, like, warning someone of someone's evils, or complaining, like, when it talks about complaining, it's not just, like, complaining for no reason. It's complaining because someone has wronged you and there's a burden on your heart that you need to relieve upon someone to get someone's counsel. Then that's a whole different issue. But all that aside, backbiting in general, like the casual backbiting that's so common within our society, I think that's kind of what we talked about today. Is like it's important to first of all recognize that, and then if that has been done to you, to spend more time alone to reconcile that, to take the time that you need to heal from those wounds before you start putting yourself in situations where you are able to be attacked. And if you are attacked again, or if you are backbited or roasted or whatever, that you, like you said, like, you also stay quiet and forgive and forget, and realize that gives you more respect and power over your own heart than attacking someone.
And after you learn to heal from it, you'll be stronger in a sense too.
Yeah,
like, you're always stronger after you heal, so it has to be proper healing.
Inshallah.
Awesome. Cool.
It's a good talk.
It was a good talk.
Alhamdulillah, may Allah help us all to stay away from backbiting and heal from those who may have wronged us.
Yeah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.